everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those unaware, my name is Tashi. I'm a senior PM at Microsoft working on the Halo franchise at the game studio 343 Industries. Senior PM is kind of like the background title. My more forward-facing title that's relevant to actually what I do day to day is esports lead. So I oversee our HCS, which is the league for competitive Halo, managing the team, putting on events, and all of that fun stuff that goes with it. So I've been at Microsoft now coming up on 9 years. I joined February 2014, February 11th to be specific. You know, it's my dream job. It's the thing I'm most passionate about. I get asked so many times, both on my Twitch stream or at live events, wherever it might be, Tashi, how did you get started in 343 and gaming? How did you go about knowing what was important to you and what you wanted to do and finding your mission and all this? I just wanted to share kind of my story, the journey that I've taken, because I would say it's definitely, at least from what people have told me, very uncommon, both from like the community, but also the people I work with. If you'd like to hear more about this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like below. Yeah, there's more content on the way. Okay, so first, it's important to know I've been playing games since I was a little kid. I think first game that I played was Mario on the original Nintendo. I was probably like 3 or 4 years old. Like, I just always loved games. When I was a teenager is when I first got my hands on Halo. Just before that though, I was really into art. I used to draw all the time. I still have a bunch of like art books and pencils and markers and stuff because I still do it on the side as a little bit of a hobby. But our whole family is pretty much artistic. My oldest brother was an amazing artist, and we all just kind of like got into drawing. So I used to draw like comics and a lot of like Ninja Turtle stuff, and then like really Dragon Ball Z and anime, once that started kind of airing when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. So really until the age I was like 15, 16, I thought I was going to be an artist. Like I was going to be a concept artist, and this is what I was going to go do for games. I think what started to change that a little bit was when I got into coding. I used to, obviously, like I mentioned, be a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. One of the things I did was I got involved in the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game forum. On the forum, I made this like RPG, this turn-based RPG where forum members can pick a character, and then you would challenge each other to fights. You would level up based on it and all this stuff. It was all manual calculation and whatnot. I loved it. And then I think the forum shut down or something happened to the forum. I can't even remember, but I wanted to continue that. So I decided to go on angelfire.com, which was a site where you could build your own websites. That's what I did. So I learned to code in like HTML. I think I was like 14, 15 years old. I built my own website, and I actually like linked 2 websites together because they only had 20 megabytes of data that they let you use as storage on their servers. That's what I did. So ran it through there. And then when Halo came out, I had this kind of like affinity for coding and was interested in that, though there wasn't anything in high school that I could take in terms of courses. So it was really just my only real exposure was like doing it on the website there. But then Halo came out, and I knew right away, I was like, I want to be an engineer on Halo. Like, I want to work on multiplayer. That's my dream. That's what I'm going to go do. Those are the teenage years. And I was lucky enough to know at a very early age, like Halo was the thing that I wanted to do. Obviously, I'm not an engineer today, so there's a lot more to the story. After high school, went to college. This was the computer science program at Rochester Institute of Technology, which is way upstate New York. It was my first time living outside of home. I was 18 years old. I didn't really know anything about how to survive on my own. And when I first got there, I was like so overwhelmed by just everything. This like living on my own, doing my own thing, trying to keep my own schedule and whatnot, while also just taking on these courses. I had to start later than everyone else. And I just remember being so like overwhelmed and feeling like I was so behind. I did really bad in college, like when I first got there. I went from a kid who was like in the 90s student in high school to like getting like 20s and 30s on tests. And I was like, it wasn't because I wasn't like learning the information. I was just so out of the loop and behind. Couldn't even wrap my head around what was actually happening. Unfortunately, family was hitting rough financial times. This is around 2007, 2008, 2009. There were times, our IT works on a quarterly basis, so it's not like one semester. The other semester, you basically have 4 quarters. And so there would be times where I would go for a quarter, then I would have to leave for a quarter, and I would go for a quarter. So I felt like I was constantly stopping and starting, and it was incredibly stressful. It was definitely the most like sad and depressed my life had ever been. And then just when I started to finally like do well well in school and get good grades is when I had to like completely drop out. At this point, I was still playing a bunch of Halo and being involved. I was playing Halo 3. Actually, when I first got to RIT, it was Halo 2, and I'd been running tournaments. I made friends with Halo people there and entered in tournaments. So during this whole time, Halo was still like a passion of mine, and so was like ultimately becoming a developer. Like that's what I wanted to do. I remember at Xbox 360, there was this program called XNA where you could make your own indie games. And I remember learning how to program C# and building a prototype and just trying to move that forward, studying all on my own, which was incredibly difficult. It's like hard enough to learn the thing, but it's really hard to know how to learn. You take it for granted in school, but they walk you through a curriculum and it's meant to like slowly teach you these things. But when I was coding on my own, basically I would think of what do I want to make? And then I would think about, okay, how do I make this happen? You know, I need to make, let's say, this character jump. Okay, well, how the hell do I do that? And I would go learn all these things about how to do that. And then that would be a wall that I would climb over. And then I would go until I hit the next wall. And I would like, okay, I need to learn how to do this thing now. And like, holy crap, that is so hard. You know, at this time, I'm living back at home in my early 20s. Like, I wasn't making any money. So I was like super unhappy. I wasn't sure what my future was going to be like. I was still playing and competing Halo. I was super involved in the community. I had a YouTube channel. I was streaming on Justin TV, followed by Twitch. I was even going to events and competing online, you know, making friends. But at this point, like all of my friends were Halo people. You know, that was still like what was most important to me. At that point, there was a switch where, you know, I was thinking about, okay, I still want to get into Halo. I knew I didn't belong in New York like that. I just knew I had big ambitions and dreams for myself, and where I was not where I was meant to be. Kind of a bigger turning point was when I started doing community cartographer work for 343 Industries. This is now 2012, 2013. At this point, Halo 4 came out. I had kind of stopped thinking about competing or being a good player in Halo 4. You know, it just didn't have all the kind of, it didn't have a ranking system. The game wasn't really built for competitive. So what I did was just focus more of my efforts on like community stuff. You know, one of the big things that I was doing was, again, being a community cartographer. And what this means is, you know, in the game of Halo, people can build their own maps using this tool called Forge. And then the developer, you know, 343 Industries, takes those maps and fine tunes them and then puts them into matchmaking for everyone to play. And so there was this team of cartographers that created maps and curated maps to, you know, bring them into playlists. And so I wasn't a good forger, but I was really passionate about the competitive community, and I worked with Bravo. His name is Andy Dudinsky. He's a close friend of mine now. And at that point, he was kind of running matchmaking. So I had known him from the competitive community. I interviewed him on a podcast, and I just knew like I needed to get super involved in this. So for a whole year, I worked super closely with him and the other cartographers in the community to work on these projects where I took these community maps. I helped, you know, test them and iterate on them to get them to be up to quality, and then, you know, get them into the game. And all this while, I'm, you know, taking advance on my paycheck at the pool store where I worked. I used to build and repair and test water and like all this stuff. So I would get an advance on my paycheck, and I would go to E3 and I would go to PAX and I would just network, and like I would reach out to developers and I would say, hey, how did you get in? What tips do you have for me? I would talk to people even I knew at Bungie. I just networked and I just tried to learn and absorb as much as I can. You know, ultimately that worked out. There came time to where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. This was now the end of 2013. I was 25 years old, and I emailed Jessica Shea, who was the community manager at the time for Halo, and I had known her a bit through various events, and you know, again, was part of my network now because I had put in the work. And I reached out to her and said, hey, I don't know if there are any testing jobs available, but I was like, I'm ready to take the next level and support the franchise. And she said, I don't know if there are any testing jobs available, but I have this community coordinator position on my team that just opened up. And she's like, I think you'd be great for it. And I was like, holy crap, I never thought of myself as doing like a role on the community team. You know, I saw myself again as like, I want to be an engineer. And so I wanted to start out as testing just the way a lot of people did and kind of figure it out from there. And when she brought that to me and shared the job description to me, I was like, oh yeah, like it makes a lot of sense. I'm like super passionate about this. A lot of what I had been doing was like in support of the community. So I applied for it, I interviewed, and I got it. And I just turned 26 when I got the job, and a few weeks later I moved out, packed everything really into 2 suitcases, moved out to Seattle, and kind of the rest is history from there. So, that's how I kind of got my job. If I could summarize through all of this, what are the key kind of things that I did or points in order to do that? One, I would say is I had a clear vision. I knew what I wanted to do. And again, it was about the mission. I wasn't fixated on, hey, I want to be a coder. That was when I was 16, 17, 18, and even through my early 20s. That was what I wanted to do. But ultimately, again, it was in support of this larger mission of wanting to work on Halo. And I was ultimately able to, when coding didn't work out, change my path. And I'm glad I did, because if I thought, no, I'm an engineer, this is what I'm going to do, who knows where I would have ended up, I was ready to, take on the mission. So I think having that clear vision of what I wanted to do and what was important to me was really important. The second was networking. I wasn't afraid to cold email people, tweet at them, whatever it was, message them on Facebook or anything. I talked to level designers, I talked to engineers, I talked to whoever. I met people at various events. If let's say Bungie was having a party, I would go there and I'd talk to some of the people that I wanted to spark up a conversation with, and I just went for it. I put myself out there and I met people, and I generally just try to have positive kind of impact, right? I wasn't out there just to hey, what can you do for me? But generally wanted to just have an overall positive kind of impact in the conversations that I had. It was almost easy to be more reciprocated that way, because, I was doing a lot of community effort. I'd taken the time to travel across the country to be at these events and do these things. And so, it was kind of organic then for people to reciprocate that back and say, here's my email, let me know if I can help you with anything, or let's set up a meeting and do this. So, the networking was a big part of it. I'd say the third was resilience. I had a lot of setbacks. You remember the story I was just telling about school and everything that happened there. I think I just stuck with it. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do, and I didn't give up. And I kept fighting and I kept pushing, and there were a lot of people around me who doubted or didn't quite believe in me. I just went for it and I didn't stop. And I knew, this is what I wanted to be and this is what I wanted to do. From there, and maybe I'll share this, in another video from when I got to 343 to now. But I've been just basically putting my head down working since I started. My goal is always to have as big an impact as I can on this franchise. And so when I first started, I was a contractor on a 6-month contract. I was allotted 45 hours a week that I could bill for, but I often worked 60, 70, 80, 90, sometimes 100-hour weeks, all on my own will, because I wanted to learn and do everything that I could. And I remember I used to be at the studio super late. My mom and dad would call me, and, they'd find out I was still at work, and they would just say why are you doing this? All this stuff. And I just remember telling them I'm investing in my future. I'm learning, I'm doing all these things. And even if for those extra hours that I was working under the radar and not getting money for it, not billing for it, I knew that I was, again, investing in my future. I'll do another video to go more into that in depth, because I think it's easy enough to do all the work to get to the job, but once you get there, how do you continue to elevate yourself as a whole different ball game? And I've thankfully been able to do that, I think, myself. So I'll share that for another video. But generally, that's my story of how I became basically a kid who loved games and eventually grew to love Halo, and then now I get to work on Halo. Hopefully that kind of provides some insights into maybe yourself and what you want to go do, and whether it's gaming or not. There might be a few kind of interesting pieces there that you could take for yourself. So that's going to do it for this video. Again, if you like more videos like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.